Welcome to Thought Talk, Positivity in Motion. Hosted by best-selling author, speaker, and coach C. Ray Collins.
Communication is still a very important key in making it positive is something that we don't do enough of.
C. Ray visits with members of our communities and leaders of local businesses on how they share a positive message during difficult and good times. And now, here's C. Ray.
Welcome to Thought Talk, where everything is positive. I'm glad everybody's here today. Last week, or last time we did a podcast, we talked about preparing yourself to be positive before you ever left home. And that's great, and that's where we want to be. Everybody needs to be positive when they leave home. So from that point, you got to think about carrying that positivity with you the rest of the day. And the way to do that is through communication, through talking positive. So before we get into some pointers about talking positive, we need to talk about failed communication. And we have to think for a minute that, you know, we have to assume that we're the people that has the tools to keep the conversation positive, and we are the ones also that keep from having a failed communication. So the points I just brought up on the screen are things that cause failed communications, and we're going to talk about those today. We'll talk about not listening for information. I'll get in detail about that. You yourself don't give enough information. I'll talk about that. And we'll talk over how people sometimes talk over another person's head. In other words, you're talking about things they don't understand. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And we'll also talk about all the facts are not present. When the facts aren't present, your communication is going to fail. You got to make sure that all the facts are present. If they're not, we'll have to ask questions about that. And then the last thing is trying to respond too quickly. So all these lead to failed communication. So let's get into those and let's talk about those, all right? So the first thing I got on the list is talking about listening for the information. Most of us hear the first 5 or 6 words to know what the conversation is going to be about. And the first thing that we do consciously, we start developing a response. We don't listen to all the information. So you have to learn to train yourself to listen to all the information so you can make a educated and a logical response. And if you rely on your subconscious, it'll help you. Okay, so one of the things you have to do is sit there and listen intensely to the information. Let the person that's talking give you all the information they've got. And then hesitate 2 seconds, because about 2 seconds is as long as it takes your subconscious to process information and store some of it and then give some of it back to your conscious for you to make a good response. Don't respond just to be responded. That's very important to remember that. A lot of us hear the first 5 or 6 words of a conversation. We start developing a response, and we respond not with all the information. So again, you're not listening for the information, you're listening to respond. So from this point on, train yourselves to listen to all the information. Second thing I have on the list is you don't give enough information to the people that you're talking to. So, you know, whether it's a casual conversation or it's a business-related conversation, a lot of times you're in a hurry to tell them what you want to talk about, and you don't give them all the information. So again, this goes back to training yourself to take your time, make sure that you supply all the information, all the facts that you have to the person you're talking to for the same reason that you needed to respond with the information. That gives them the information to respond back to you logically and with an educated response. It's important to make sure that you give all the information that you have when you're communicating with somebody, no matter what it's about. Even if it's talking about going to a movie, before you say, hey, you want to go to a movie, be ready to say, hey, you know, there's 2 trailers showing about these 2 movies, movie so-and-so, so-and-so, you know, you want to go see the movie. that's giving them information to be ready to respond. Because if you don't give them that information, then their response may be, I don't know, what's the movie about? So give them all that information up front, and then they can give you a educated response. It's important to do that. So remember to do that, okay? The next thing is talking over someone's head. And this is one of my favorite subjects. You know, people are educated. People's been to college. Some people's got master's degrees. Some have philosophy. Some major in English and literature, whatever. And they have a very good gift of the American language. But most of your communication in written form, and when I talk about written form, I'm talking about newspapers, I'm talking about magazines, I'm talking about even books that are written, unless it's on a specified subject, is written on about 8th grade level, okay? In other words, most all communication that we do is on an 8th grade level. Even when we just in general conversations, it's usually about an 8th grade level. So when you're communicating with somebody in general conversation, or if you're working out something, try to keep it on a level that they understand, okay? And of course, I could get into the body language. If you understood body language a little bit, you also could understand when you're telling them stuff they don't understand. But so a general rule, and it works for everybody, is talk on about an 8th grade level, and that way communication usually gets conveyed to the party that you're talking to. And again, that's, you know, we talk about all this, but all of this is practice and being consistent. So, you know, these things you will have to practice, and you have to be consistent. And it's easy to learn once you get started. And then we'll talk about having all the facts present. Now, this is probably one of the things that especially in business, that causes conflict or causes problems when you're communicating, is all the facts are not on the table. You don't have all the information you need to have a discussion. Now, this also goes if you're home talking to your children, or if you're talking to your spouse. You know, when you engage on a subject, you know, if you're not sure that all the information's there, ask that question. You know, ask, hey, you know, I need to know about so-and-so. I need to know about this, to make sure that all the facts are on the table, so you can have a discussion that not only develops the results you want, but it also be able to give correct answers, educated answers that you need to give. That's people have a tendency to want to respond to something and only know half the facts, or they only know the facts that they want to know. So we got to make sure that all the facts are on the table. Remember, you have to assume that when you have this conversation with somebody else, that you're the one that has the tools to have a communication that doesn't fail, okay? So it's up to you to make sure that all the facts are laid out on the table. This is very important, and I can't stress it enough, okay? And then last thing I have on here, you try and you respond too quick. Now, this kind of goes back to the first thing that I talked about, is you want to respond to reply, okay? It's so I always use this rule of thumb, and I talk about it a lot, because our subconscious is the key to our communication. Everything that we take in goes to our subconscious. Now, we may have it all in our conscious mind, but it also goes to our subconscious. And if we give that subconscious just enough time, it'll analyze that very quickly, and it'll give your conscious mind back information that you need. And it'll never fail you. Your subconscious will never fail you, and it will give you the information you need. So when you're in a discussion, general conversation, business, instructions, whatever it may be, before you respond, always allow about 2 seconds for that subconscious to help you out in responding with the correct answer, okay? Now, all of this together is very important. You don't want failed communication. Failed communication is probably the #1 problem in our whole society, from political to business to just friendships, is always failed communication, because either we don't say what we need to say, or we don't supply enough information for the other party to understand. So remember, don't have a failed communication. Make sure you take the steps to keep that from happening. And go out there and be positive. Now we move in is about how to keep that conversation positive and how to approach every day, every person in a positive way. So I've got a slide up with several things on it. Talk about smiling, the name, permission, little favors, small talk, accessibility, equal ground, and how the facts. And so we're going to cover each one of those and how it can benefit you in your everyday life, whether you're communicating with friends, family, co-workers, or people at City Hall. It doesn't matter. You can keep everything positive, and that positive will come back to you. So let's dive into it and we'll get started. So we all know that smiling at somebody is very important. So what happens when you smile, it almost triggers their mind to smile back at you, okay? And it also starts that wave of positivity in the mind. So even if you're fixing to talk about something that may not be as positive you like it be, it doesn't hurt to start it out with a smile. And everybody has their own smile. Mine's not big teeth and all that kind of stuff, but everybody has their own smile, and you can tell whether it's genuine or not genuine. So smile at people. Let them know that you're in a good mood. It'll help put them in a good mood. Okay? And then we talk about name. Name. Anytime you speak the other person's name, it creates positive energy in their mind. Okay? And so by all means, when you first walk up to them, you want to say their name. Okay? And during the conversation, if you can repeat their name at least 3 times, you've created a huge wave, not only in positive energy, but it also, if you say it 3 times, it also gives them a feeling that you like them. Okay? It makes them feel like you like those folks. So use their name. Use the name as often as you possibly can. And so now we've got 2 things that's got positive energy flowing. So let's talk about permission. Now this throws a lot of people off because, it's good to get permission to have a conversation. You don't walk up to somebody, hey, may I have your permission to have a conversation? There's lots of ways to do that in general conversation. So the best thing I can do is give you some examples. Say, hey, Tom, you got a minute to talk to me? That's one way. Hey, you're pretty smart on this subject. Can we have a conversation about it? That's another way of asking permission. They're going to say, yeah, or no, I don't have time right now. So by asking their permission, not only does it still create positive wave, it also it shows a sign of respect to them and makes them feel good that you asked if you could have that conversation. Yeah, you understand that it's all about how you approach somebody. Hey, you got a minute? I need to talk to you. It's that simple. Simple little words you can say to say, hey, is it okay if I speak to you? And that's what you want to do when you first walk up to somebody to have a conversation. Now, you may not do that sometimes in a general conversation, or if it's your buddy that's sitting next to you, you may just open up and start talking. But due to the fact that they're already there, then that permission is already given. But normally you walk up to somebody, whether it's in a store or something, and say, hey, excuse me for a minute, can I talk to you? That's asking permission. And that permission goes a long ways with positive energy and showing respect. Okay, so don't forget that. Then let's talk about little favors. This is one of my favorite things because first thing let me tell you that a big favor is a negative comment. Anytime you say big favor, the mind, the subconscious says, oh no, what could they possibly want? So don't ever ask for a big favor. Even if you need a big favor, break it down into little favors, okay? Because what happens when you ask somebody about a little favor, it means, hey, this guy trusts me. He wants me to do a little something for him. So sometimes when you say, hey, Bob, can we have a conversation? And he says, yeah. And I said, well, listen, I need a little favor from you, okay? So that's how you approach that. Little favors go a long way with showing somebody respect, and then also it gives them the feeling that you respect them and they've got some knowledge that you want. So remember that. Ask for little favors. It's a great way to go into a conversation. And then we talk about small talk. Sometimes you won't put people at ease when you first start having a conversation. So it's okay. Hey, how are you today? Are you feeling good? You enjoying this weather? How's your family? A little bit of small talk sometimes relaxes the person that you're talking to, and it makes them feel more comfortable. And if they feel more comfortable, they're going to be more positive, and they're going to be more receptive to what you have to say. So it's okay to kind of get into a little bit of small talk, whether you're doing it as you walk into an office or you're doing it as you go through the door. Just a little bit of small talk makes them feel more comfortable, which is positive, and then they more receptive to what you have to say. So be sure to do that. And then we come into accessibility, and this accessibility is at home or at work or wherever. You know, if you need to go into a department store and talk to the manager and he's in an office behind closed doors, you automatically feel a negative input that you got to knock on that door to go into the room. So try to always make yourself accessible, okay? Even at your work, if your coworker's always behind closed door, they don't feel accessible, okay? So the more open it is, if you got your door cracked or if you got your door all the way open, it makes people feel you're accessible to have a conversation. And the same thing goes if you're in a car and somebody's approaching your car and want to have a conversation. The logical thing to do is go ahead and roll the window down so you are accessible. If you leave the window up, they don't feel accessible to have a conversation with you. So accessibility does play a role in people's attitude as far as being positive or not positive. So accessibility, something else to remember. And then we talk about equal ground. Equal ground is talking about if you walk up to somebody that's sitting down and you need to have a conversation with them, don't start with you standing up. You sit down and be on equal levels with them, okay? Don't try to be over them. You know, nobody likes to be tired over, okay? Now, if you walk somebody and they're standing, and so it's fine for you to stand in a proximity of them to have a conversation. It's always better if you could say, hey, if you got a minute, come here and sit down and let's have a conversation. That's even better. Anytime you can sit down, people feel more relaxed and they feel more comfortable. And so, you know, one of the things I like to say, don't sit beside the person you want to have that conversation with. Sit where they can actually look at you when you're talking, because subconsciously, where they realize not, they're going to be looking at your body motions and your eyes and all this. They may not understand all of it, but it still makes them feel more comfortable that they can see you, okay? And maybe later on we'll talk about body language in another show. But this show, we're still talking about how to talk positive, and so you can spread that positivity throughout your day. So we go into the last thing is, again, and we talked about it earlier, but I want to talk about it again, is having the facts. In other words, and whether this is to go say, hey, you know, I want to go play baseball. I want to go watch a baseball game. Make sure you have the facts. Hey, the ball game's at 8 o'clock. It's over in Arlington, and we can get seats in the midsection and all that. So have the facts before you start the conversation. Okay, it always makes the conversation go slower. In business, it's a very big key, a very big element in keeping your conversation positive, and it's a way that the person that you're having a conversation with feels like that you have the information he needs if you're conveying the facts. And then it also shows respect to them that you're giving them the information they need. So remember those facts whenever you're dealing with people. Facts are very, very important. And then, of course, you know, we always talk about, closing the conversation. And there's no particular thing except you thank somebody for having a conversation, or hey, I appreciate the information you gave me, or hey, it's great to talk to you. Man, you're really knowledgeable. I appreciate that. There's lots of ways to end a conversation on a positive note, and so try to do that. So once again, I'm going to flash up these points. You look at them, and they're easy to put in almost any conversation. And they're all just as equally as important as the other. So as you go out through your day, try to include these in your conversation. They'll keep things, you're pushing positivity forward to the next person, and hopefully they'll do the same to the next person. And then we'll have a positive atmosphere where you're at, and it makes it more productive. It makes everybody happier. On your positive day, all this information is in my book and Thought Talk, and I'm also available to do coaching or training, and you can get a hold of me on craycollins.com, and I'd love to come out and share this information along with the other things that are in this book and enlighten you on body language and communicating with family and all the different things that are available. So if you need to contact me, go to craycollins.com. Thanks a lot.